Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks a lot for checking us out on Fox Local, the Fox 6 Milwaukee YouTube channel. However you're finding us today, we are here for you for the next 2 hours with myself and Kim Murphy handling the duties here for our digital efforts from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to the world, we like to say, right? Because we can take you all over the place, and we'll give an example of that happening right now. A live look at downtown Milwaukee, kind of a cool Cloud City vibe as we've had some rain and storms coming through. In fact, down at the Summerfest grounds, we're going to get a check-in with Stephanie Barrichello later on throughout these 2 hours. She's down there live as Summerfest weekend number 2 is underway now, started exactly 30 minutes ago, and they are going to deal with some rain throughout the day today, while the rest of the 3-day forecast for the big gig looks pretty decent once we get into the bulk of the weekend. There's also a Milwaukee County Board meeting happening right now. We'll try to take you to some of that and the discussion happening as there's a series of people who want their voices heard there in front of those county supervisors. But first and foremost, we are going to start with the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who has started her briefing already today, following up a big day for the administration, which has been defending the U.S. strikes on Iran and whether or not it was, in fact, an obliteration of the Iranian nuclear program. The press secretary started by saying that it was an overwhelming success. The mission will go down in the history books, and that they are on a diplomatic path right now with Iran, also adding that they do not believe, based on their intelligence, that enriched uranium stockpiles were moved before those U.S. strikes over the weekend. That's a bit of what's been discussed. Let's listen to the rest with Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary in Washington.
Leaders, including the Prime Minister of Australia. Obviously, President Zelensky, he's managed to meet since then, but are there plans afoot to make up for those meetings with the world leaders that he missed out on?
Yeah, I think many of those world leaders understood the situation happening in the Middle East and the urgency and the need for the president to get back to Washington to monitor that situation. And obviously that was the right call, considering the success of not only the operation on Saturday night, but also the ceasefire that the president has since brokered on behalf of not just our country, but the entire world, frankly. But he has made up a couple of those meetings, and he has had direct phone calls with some of those leaders he was supposed to meet with as well. Not all. Ed.
Oh yeah, thanks, Caroline. So to clarify on trade, so what happens to the countries other than China on July 9th?
That's a decision for the president to make, and I will let him make it.
Okay, and secondly, so now that oil is just about upper $60s a barrel, when's the administration going to start refilling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
That's, again, a decision for the president to make and our Secretary of Energy. There's no imminent plans to do that, from what I understand. But as you have seen with the plummeting of oil prices in this country, it's because this president and our Department of Energy have really tapped into our resources here, and we have an increase of supply, unlike the previous administration that totally hampered our domestic energy efforts, but totally robbed and drained our strategic petroleum reserves. So when the time is right, the president will make that decision. But right now, we are utilizing the resources that God blessed us with right here in our country to produce energy for our people.
You know, one more if I could, on the One Big Beautiful Bill, does the president believe the parliamentarian of the Senate should be removed?
I haven't spoken to him about that, and I'll let him speak on it. However, again, he knows this is part of the process and the inner workings of the Senate, and he wants to see this bill done, and he remains very much engaged in these conversations and in this process with lawmakers in both the Senate and the House side, and the whole White House does as well. In the back. Yes, Libby.
Thank you, Caroline. Earlier today, the president stated that these photos out of Fordo that were showing nuclear materials being removed, suspected of showing that, were just concrete workers. What intelligence is that based upon?
Look, the president shared that statement with all of you, and I already answered the question about whether uranium was moved prior to the strike, and the answer is no.
Is there a chance that the DIA report becomes public at any point?
I don't think this administration is going to get into the habit of sharing classified, top-secret information. Those classifications exist for a reason, and I wish everyone who had the privilege of looking at these documents would respect that. Daniel?
Thank you, Caroline. You've been emphatic that the president's expectations for the One Big Beautiful Bill to hit that July 4th deadline. You had a big meeting on Capitol Hill yesterday with the Republican Study Committee. Did you walk away from that meeting pleased with what you heard? Did it bolster your confidence that Congress is able to meet that the expectation of the president?
Yes, I did. The camaraderie at the Republican Study Committee was great. Members, expressed, their feelings about the bill, but as we saw, the bill passed through the House despite many people believing it could not. So the House is ready to receive this bill back from the Senate so they can pass it and bring it to the president's desk. So it was a great meeting, and Republicans are very unified. And we also talked about the mayoral race in New York City and how the victory of the Democratic primary candidate really shows how far left and unhinged the Democrat Party has become. And Republicans truly are on the right side of every issue in this country. We are on the side of no men in women's sports, on the side of low taxes, secure borders. So that was the topic of discussion, and the unity was strong and the camaraderie was high. And I know everyone looks forward to being here at the White House for the bill signing next week. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The Supreme Court ruled this morning that South Carolina is allowed to deem Planned Parenthood as not a qualified health care provider, and that will block it from receiving Medicaid funds. Does the White House have a statement on that ruling, and would the president support a standalone bill from Congress to defund Planned Parenthood at a federal level rather than letting each state determine it?
I'll let the president speak on that legislative priority, but as for the Supreme Court ruling, the president has always maintained that Americans should not be forced to violate their conscience and their religious liberty by having their tax dollars fund abortions, and we're glad the Supreme Court ruled on that side today, or yesterday.
Then on Iran, but on a domestic matter, in January, President Trump revoked security details for several former administrations, including Mike Pompeo, Mark Milley, and John Bolton. Given the heightened tensions with Iran right now, is he considering restoring those security details?
That's not under consideration right now. Fran.
If I could follow up on trade, and then I have a question about the bill as well. Are you saying at this point that there's no plans to extend that July 8th and July 9th deadline? I mean, especially with everything that's been going on from Iran to the tax bill on Capitol Hill, is that under consideration at all at this point?
Perhaps it could be extended, but that's a decision for the president to make.
And as far as the bill itself goes, since the president has been back, what has he been doing beyond the event that he's having later today to try and get wobbly senators on board? Is he making phone calls, twisting arms? Is he having some people over to the White House? Can you tell us more about that effort?
There have been meetings at the White House this week. I saw some senators rolling out of the Oval Office the other day, and the president remains on the phones talking to his friends in the Senate when necessary, and when they call, he picks up the phone. And I think that's why they greatly trust and respect his leadership. And we're having that big event later this afternoon at 4 o'clock. I would encourage you all to tune in. We're going to have some great everyday Americans who are in attendance. We'll have some tipped delivery drivers. I think we're going to have a barber from the great state of Arkansas here in attendance. We're going to have some law enforcement officers, some Border Patrol agents, and Tom Homan will be speaking as well. So the point of this event is to show the American people how this bill works for them and how there are provisions in this bill that will change their lives.
Can you tell us which senators you saw rolling out of the Oval Office?
I'll let the president speak on that if he wish. I don't share details about his private meetings without his permission. Emily, go ahead.
Today, the Justice Department announced it was opening an investigation into employment discrimination at the University of California, alleging they had race and sex-based quotas. Federal law bars hiring somebody based on their race or sex, but do you also object to universities working harder to make sure they have a diverse group of candidates to consider? And do you expect more investigations like this from DOJ?
I have not seen that investigation from the Department of Justice, but I can certainly check in. What I can tell you, it's the position of this president that we want to restore a merit-based society and culture in the United States of America where people are not hired nor are they promoted based on their color of their skin or their gender. The president wants people to be hired in the workforce because of their merit and their skill, and I think most Americans agree with that. I'll take one more. Carrie, because I promised you earlier.
So the Ayatollah Khomeini came out and said that Iran will, quote, never surrender to the U.S. That being said, what remains to do with the possible responses from Iranian proxies in the region and even in the U.S.?
Look, we saw the Ayatollah's video, and when you have a totalitarian regime, you have to save face. I think any common sense, open-minded person knows the truth about the precision strikes on Saturday night. They were wildly successful, and it's what led to the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran, which the president is very grateful for. And the United States of America remains prepared to defend our assets and our personnel in the region. And again, I would just emphasize the success of the strike that took place on Saturday night, and the world is a safer place because of it. Thanks, guys, for coming today, and you'll see the president at 4 o'clock. Thanks.
That is the press briefing from Caroline Leavitt. As you heard, President Donald Trump will also be speaking later today, as the administration has had a series of people discussing the recent U.S. strikes in Iran. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, was very animated this morning, sharing the results from the administration's viewpoint of how successful that mission was. Caroline Leavitt backing that up as well, and then we'll hear from the president later on today. It is the Wisconsin Live Desk, though, so we want to get you back to some of the news happening locally here in our great state as we check in with Ashley Sears joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Ashley, great to see you. Looks like a beautiful venue for what you're joining us with there. Always good to be on a golf course. What's going on?
Yeah, it might be the perfect assignment on the perfect day to be out here on the golf course. We're working on a story today that you'll see at 5:30 and 6:15 about a South Milwaukee man. Today he's going to be thanking first responders, those people who saved his life. Back in May, he was out here at the Johnson Park Golf Course in Racine when he had a heart attack. I'm told he was on the back nine when he suffered a heart attack. He collapsed and lost consciousness. I'm told an employee here at the golf course performed CPR for 20 minutes before he was taken away by ambulance. The ambulances were led on the course by some of the golf carts here to, he was in a difficult spot to get to. The Caledonia Fire Department took him to Ascension All Saints in Racine. Doctors say before the big heart attack, he had a series of what's called mini heart attacks. And today he'll be reuniting at the hospital with those first responders, those doctors, to not only say thank you, but to also raise awareness about mini heart attacks and kind of tell what the warning signs are and say, not to ignore them.
That's an amazing story of survival and of action taken by so many people to help that man out as well. I'm sure so much, Ashley, we'll be looking forward to that moment that you'll get to witness and see in person. But what are you most looking forward to seeing or to hear from either of the many people involved here once it happens in a little bit?
Well, I know it starts at 1 o'clock here, but I think, we've all covered these sort of stories, and they're just so emotional when that reunion happens and that moment of gratitude. It really is a story of gratitude and survival. But the neat part of it is that, they're using this event to raise awareness about mini heart attacks, something I had never heard of. Apparently, in the days that preceded the big heart attack, he had felt some warning signs, fatigue, some nausea, some tightness in his chest, and he kind of brushed them aside, is what I'm told. And he wants people to know, don't brush it aside, because there could be a massive heart attack kind of on the forefront, and it's something you don't want to ignore.
Yes, certainly. I'm sure some of it will be discussions with some of the medical professionals, too, about some of the details of it. But from what you've gathered, as much as you can, not being a doctor yourself or me, what are these mini heart attacks, and how do you separate, like, oh, I'm just tired, versus, no, this is actually the kind of precursor to something serious?
I'm hoping to learn more about that. I talked to a PR person ahead of time, and she said the cardiologist is kind of the best person to talk about that. But I do have a list. They said the common signs are, chest tightness, shortness of breath, fatigue, nausea, and dizziness. And they said the message is, it's not something you just want to call your doctor and say, I'm feeling these sort of things. They say if you're feeling that, to go to the ER, because it could be a precursor to a heart attack.
And we certainly know, seconds can count, let alone minutes, and that's amazing to hear how long he received CPR for before those ambulances could get there. Is that kind of a side part to the story as well? And we've done a lot here at the station recently with Project Adam, trying to get those different heart response times down, and just how crucial that can be for people who do know CPR, do act in the moment like those people did on that golf course.
Yeah, I'm told he was golfing with friends, and some of the friends jumped in, but there is someone who works here who has extensive training in CPR, and she took over for 20 minutes. That's something you don't often hear about. That's a very long time, and was able to, keep him going until the first responders arrived here. An interesting thing the PR woman with the hospital said is that he was talking to her, he had a surgery, he said he's a little sore to this day, not from the surgery, but from the amount of CPR that was performed on him. So it's an important lesson for all of us. You know, get CPR certified. It could save your life. You could be out on the course enjoying a beautiful day when something like that happens.
Yeah, you never know when that's going to happen. All right, here's the most important question. Maybe you can ask him. Has he gotten back on the golf course yet? Is he still waiting to get his game in tune here this spring, summer?
I will ask him that. I don't know. I think that you know, golfers love to golf, so I'm sure he's eager to get back out here if he hasn't already.
He's certainly had some other things to worry about in his life, but it sounds like that life continuing with good health, thanks to so many people involved. All right, Ashley, thank you so much. Really looking forward to that full story you'll bring us later tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm very jealous of your backdrop this afternoon.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, that is Ashley Sears reporting. Yeah, if you want to see the moment that she is kind of leading us up to, that will happen around 1 o'clock today. We will bring you Ashley's story here on Fox Local later today. You can check out during our different newscasts at 4, 5, and 6. But a great reminder for all of us, you know, I went through CPR certification when we first had our first daughter. Yes, it's important for your family, but you never know who else you might be able to step in and help in a crucial situation, a crucial moment like that as well. All right, that is a great story coming to you later today here on Fox Local. We'll give you a nice shot of downtown Milwaukee as we see some of the clouds moving through, a bit of blue skies, but we're not done with the rain quite yet. We are going to take you to the Summerfest grounds, but you know what? This is the joy of the Wisconsin Live Desk. Let's pop something else for you that just happened on this feed. Hold on. How about we take you all the way from Milwaukee to what I'm very much positive is Venice, Italy. Of course, the apparent impending wedding of one of the richest men in the world, Jeff Bezos, happening in Italy right now along the canals. I believe this is a live shot from Venice. Pretty cool that we can take you all over the world. How about that? Here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, but you never know where the feeds will be. And pretty cool seeing the canals and the water taxis in action there on the other side of the globe. All right, with that, we will take that short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Who knows, maybe we'll bring you more from Italy throughout the rest of the hour 45 that we're with you here the rest of the way. Every Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 2:30 is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, Carl Deffenbaugh back with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, 12:49, hanging out with you until 1:30. Then Kim Murphy will take over the second hour of our afternoon affair here. We will take you back to Venice because it's just kind of fun to drop in on some people, especially because you never know what celebrity sightings will happen along the Venice canals for this wedding of the year apparently happening over in Italy. But really quickly, since this just popped up, I want to bring this up for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. So much of the discussion nationally, internationally has been about the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear program. This is a stakeout camera where different members of the U.S. Senate are about to receive a classified briefing on the Iran strike. So different senators have stepped to the podium here. Let's listen in.
But this shouldn't be what it wasn't with General Soleimani. General Soleimani's briefing was one of the more embarrassing things I've seen as a U.S. Senator. Every Democrat was going after Secretary Pompeo saying, you didn't have the authority, you didn't have the evidence, and it was ridiculous. Soleimani deserved to be dead. And the world is a better, safer place when President Trump ordered him to be killed. And now the world's a better, safer place now that Iran's nuclear capacity has been dramatically degraded. We'll see by how much. But this idea of kind of prosecuting these guys as opposed to thanking them, I think is ridiculous, and I'm hoping it's not going to happen this time.
Senator, there was a report that the Trump administration wants to brief senators less. Can you comment on that?
Can you guys get them to square up toward the cameras?
So there you go. We might see a series of different U.S. senators passing by that feed there. It's a bit of the stakeout podium there. You see the number of microphones as senators are heading to a classified briefing on the Iran strike. I know on the Democratic side, since those strikes on Saturday, much of the discussion has been on whether or not Congress was even informed, was not, before those military strikes on another country. And then the questions in the days since that there has not been as much information or sharing of intelligence with Congress after the administration's choice to fire those bunker buster bombs, drop those bombs on 3 different sites in Iran, severely limiting the nuclear program, as you've heard the Republican administration say, obliterating Iran's program, although some early intelligence from the U.S. after that questions whether or not the Iran nuclear program is fully destroyed or not. So as senators continue to head to that briefing, we'll try to bring you as many comments as we can, especially if there are any of our 2 Wisconsin senators stepping to that podium. In the meantime, switch gears, much lighter. How about that? We go from the Venice canals to the open water here, continuing to enjoy this feed from Venice ahead of the impending nuptials between Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, the Amazon billionaire over and over and over again, one of the richest men in the world, second only to Elon Musk, about to get married. This is a feed of some of the festivities. It is an absolute who's who on the invite list. Let's just say my wedding didn't have Oprah, Bill Gates, Leo, Orlando Bloom all invited. Ivanka Trump also on the invite list and expected to descend on Venice. Some of the photos the AP has posted on their website too. You just see Oprah chilling in a water taxi, Tom Brady jumping into a boat along the Venice canals. It is quite something, quite the event, although it has also received a series of protests as well. People questioning whether the second richest man in the world should be doing more to benefit the health of the globe at that standpoint, questioning whether more taxes on the rich and other things should happen. So as that feed kind of goes in and out, we will continue to try to take you to Venice, because that's amazing. In the meantime, switching gears back, another senator has stepped to the podium here. Let's listen in.
The public deserves to hear more. In fact, everything we're hearing today, a lot of it should be before the American people. And if the administration is withholding essential facts, it's a disservice to the brave and skilled American military who accomplished a feat that will go down in the annals of military history for its skill and daring. And they owe it to those military to be completely forthcoming about how successful this strike was.
So last night, Todd Blanche said that he would be willing to prosecute a member of Congress if it was a member of Congress who leaked that initial assessment, the intelligence report on the damage of the bombing. Do you think that could have been leaked from Congress, and do you think those comments are appropriate?
I have no clue as to what was leaked, who did it. I read about it just like everyone else in the 5 news outlets that had the DNI.
But threatening to prosecute a member of Congress for something like that, do you think that's appropriate?
if a member of Congress broke the law, they should be prosecuted, but I have no reason to believe that a member of Congress was responsible for that leak other than administration officials saying it.
Senator Sullivan also said he has questions.
So there you go, kind of hearing both perspectives there. Republican senator at first, and then that was Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut stepping to the bank of microphones there before this private briefing, a closed classified briefing for certain senators on the Iran strike and the state of the Iran nuclear program after the U.S. joined Israel in military action over the weekend. The brief will include Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and others. And now that Senator Fetterman has stepped to the microphone, let's listen in.
There's a report that the Trump administration wants to brief members of Congress less. Have you spoken with your Republican colleagues about that?
No, I've had conversations with other people in the administration about the strike. I mean, not in a classified way like this, but no, I've had conversations.
What's the level of information that members should be getting when they're concerned about these leaks, especially after they have insinuated maybe something came out of Capitol Hill?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people in the media and others here, you really jumped on that early leak. And now, I mean, I think it's clear that it was effective. It doesn't necessarily that it permanently destroyed their nuclear capabilities, but this is why I absolutely been calling for those strikes, and I continue to support those things.
And on the Kane resolution, which will come up tomorrow night, you would vote how?
Well, I'll say this: I love that man, and he's coming in from a very principled side. But I'm going to vote no on that, simply because I would never want to restrict any future president, Republican or Democrat, to do this kind of a military kind of exercise that was very successful. This has been.
What are your thoughts on Senate Republicans saying that? What are your thoughts on Senate Republicans saying that Leader Thune should fire the Senate parliamentarian?
No. But I remember it wasn't that long that we were upset with it too. You know, I mean, depending on if they I don't think it's appropriate to fire the individual just because you disagree with it. But again, this isn't like a new issue too, because I know when we were in the majority, we kind of had our frustrations and some kind of circumstances.
Is this a thing with the parliamentarian, like working the refs, where people are pleased if they get a ruling the way they want it, and if it goes against them? You know, if you're a Steelers fan versus a Bengals fan.
Yeah. I forget the name, like the tennis guy, John Mack. Yelling and screaming at the referee just because you don't like the call. I mean, you don't have to like the call, but that's where we are right now. And now for me, I would hope that we just don't try to ramrod this through before the July 4th break. I mean, if this is so important, it's going to impact millions and millions of Americans. At least take your time to do it in the right way, and just wait till after the break. You know, they have the rest of the month of July to do all that kinds of thing. I don't understand why it matters to try to do something the next 5 days in that difference. It's very strange to me.
The Deputy Attorney General last night said that if it was a member of Congress behind that early leak of the damage assessment in Iran, that they would prosecute a member of Congress. Do you think that's appropriate? If you could look at that camera as well, the answer.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that at all. So I can't really comment on that. I wasn't familiar with that.
Does that alarm you that they might try to prosecute a member of Congress? Well, I mean, one's in prison right now. Right, I know.
Yeah, for the gold bars in the mattress. Well, I mean, so my concern. So
I know, but here they have an issue. I mean, the idea that they're coming after a member of Congress. We know what happened with Ms. McIver.
Well,
we know what
of course,
Padilla.
Yeah, like obviously no kinds of political going after a member of Congress. Of course not, as well. I mean,
Senator Bowen, can we get you at the camera, sir?
As we continue to see the different senators and their different opinions step to the podium, shared with the media there ahead of a classified briefing on the Iran strikes and how the administration went through with those actions, joining in with what Israel was doing to hamper Iran's nuclear program. We'll try to get you more of that. We do have to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll continue to return you to some local stories as well. On the lighter side, Summerfest weekend 2, day 4, there we go, already underway. And we'll take you live to the festival grounds, where weather's certainly a story today, but it looks pretty good for the rest of this second weekend of the big gig. So all that and much more to come on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Good afternoon, Carl Deffenbaugh back with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Just past the 1 o'clock hour, we'll be here until 2:30, as we are each and every Monday through Friday here on Fox Local and the FOX6 Milwaukee YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for checking it out. We bring you all kinds of news. We've had the information from D.C. on both the press secretary's briefing and some of the senators heading into that classified briefing on Iran strikes. We've had a heartwarming story to come from Ashley Sears today on a golfer who was saved after a heart attack on the middle of his round out in the middle of a golf course. And then we get some lighter stories as well, courtesy of Stephanie Barrichello. Great to have you with us, my friend, joining us live from the U.S. Cellular stage, our partner stage down at the Summerfest grounds. All right, Steph, we've been showing some of the tower cameras since you're the weather expert here. It looks like a bit of an odd day. It's almost like a Cloud City effect with those low fog and clouds rolling through, but maybe sunshine also behind you?
Yeah, it's already been a wacky couple of hours, I'll tell you that. Before Wisconsin weather experts started at noon, we were in the middle of setting up and the clouds just opened. We had a relatively quick thunderstorm roll through, but very heavy rain. It was amazing because there was the steam coming off of the ground because the cement was already so warm, and then we got the rain, so that was awesome. It ended within, probably 10-15 minutes. So drying out now. We do have sunshine and have had sunshine since then. But yes, like you mentioned, there has been little pockets of fog at times in the last, we'll say 20-30 minutes. It's been kind of cool because obviously we're right here on the lake. We can kind of see it going through some of the stages and then dissipating. So we'll likely still see a little bit more of that. We do have a lake breeze, so it could potentially bring in a little bit of fog at times. But there's already another pop-up storm south of Milwaukee. So I do think that this is going to be a day where you still head to Summerfest. Bring your poncho, though, and make sure you have your Storm Center app or a radar of some kind on your phone so that you can watch what's happening, watch these storms that are popping. I do think they'll become a little bit more widespread heading into our evening hours. So something to just keep in mind. Also, a really good song just started playing at the U.S. Cellular Connection stage, a little Tom Petty. We have an awesome cover band playing right now named The Incident. They started at 12:45. So I'm trying not to dance, but I might need to start.
If you want to do some karaoke here, it is the Wisconsin Live Desk. Anything can happen.
please, you don't want that.
All right, we'll stick to what you're an expert in. Let's handle the weather. We'll get back to some of the fun of the music to come this weekend, but it's a bit of a kind of good news, bad news, right? So I have access to your graphic, Steph, so I'll pull up the satellite and radar for you here. This is the morning leading up to now, but we kind of see what came through our area, but it's more so about what's still to come later today for all those people hopefully joining you there along the festival grounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth mentioning too that we do have a warm front in the vicinity. And so it's more so, I think, going to bring some stronger thunderstorms out west. But in addition to just having the chance for some thunderstorms today, we could be looking at a severe potential throughout, especially our inland areas, but including lakeshore communities. So once again, I do think this really is going to be a day to be weather aware, despite the fact that it's sunny right now in Milwaukee and all is calm, all is good. That could change, especially during our later evening hours. So bring the poncho. We have the bathrooms here at Summerfest. We have a lot of these covered bars that you can take refuge under, but you just need to be prepared to do that if some of those storms do, in fact, develop. Again, there's just one right now, mainly south of the Milwaukee area, but it could be one of those days. Tomorrow is looking better, though, and same with Saturday.
That's what I was
so that's some good news.
Maybe a personal forecast, as you know, I love to ask you on many days of behind the scenes here at Fox 6. If someone was maybe going both Friday and Saturday to Summerfest, those actually look like pretty good days to be down there.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was thinking about bringing my kids on Saturday. We like to come, right when it starts. It's not as filled, not as crazy, but Saturday there's going to be a nice lake breeze. So I think Summerfest is probably going to be the best place to be as we start the weekend. Sunday, the heat returns. So Saturday and again, even Friday, both looking like great dates. Friday, only a slight chance for a few storms, but most of the day is trending dry. So after today, we're looking pretty good for the rest of the second weekend of Summerfest.
That sounds pretty good to me, yeah. And nice that it won't be until Sunday, at least, the extreme heat that Summerfest kind of went through on their first weekend as well. They even made some accommodations for what people could bring into the grounds. Last weekend looks like much cooler temperatures, thankfully, for this second weekend of the big gig. All right, let's get into some of the fun. You got Tom Petty rocking out behind you here, that cover band.
Yes.
What do you look for in a great Summerfest band? Whether it's a big headliner, whether it's one of those local bands who just does all the covers and rocks out, what do you look for, Steph?
Oh, just good songs. This band, great voices. They've chosen great songs to cover, so this is perfect. I know right when Summerfest opens, you're not going to have the biggest bands, but they are still so talented. So I'm loving who we have on stage. The headliner tonight is Lainey Wilson. She's fantastic if you're a country fan. And also, by the way, a lot of the artists that we have at our U.S. Cellular Connection stage, country for this evening. So different from some of more of the R&B and hip-hop that we had last Thursday when we were here. But personally, when I think Summerfest, I like to take advantage of some of the throwback bands. I was thinking Saturday about maybe seeing The Fray. Does that ring a bell? It's been a few years, but that is what I love about Summerfest. It's like a blast from the past, music that I used to love but maybe haven't listened to in a long time. And you get all of it in one festival. So that's what I personally look for.
Okay, Steph, this is for you then, because we had Sarah Pancari, the CEO of the Milwaukee World Festival, president of Summerfest, on the show yesterday, and she was specifically calling out, if you like The Fray, there's apparently a whole lineup of bands, all similar sounds, all in that vibe, coming to Summerfest. So there you go. It's like they perfectly curated this music for you.
It's like they knew I wanted to come see that band. This is great. Also, Carl, real quick, if you are coming down to Summerfest at all today, I have pit passes for the U.S. Cellular Connection stage.
Whoa.
Come see me. I will give you one. Tell me you were watching Fox Local. I'll probably still give them away anyways. But bonus, if you're watching this show, and we're watching Wisconsin weather experts, come see me at the U.S. Cellular Connection stage, and I will give you a free pit pass.
Man, you got it all, Steph. Okay, it's a great lineup tonight, too. Still to
I do what I can.
We actually had this woman on Fox 6 Wake Up this morning, Scout Spear, kind of an up-and-coming country singer from Tennessee. She's at 3:15. Later today, you get Landon Smith, LaCade, and Gavin Adcock, the headliner tonight at the USL. So if you want to be up close and personal with any of them, Steph is your calling card there. She's got the goods. Okay, to tell people behind the scenes, because we are friends outside, you were giving out ice cream in your village yesterday. You're giving out pit passes today. You're like the fairy godmother of Milwaukee area, or the Santa Steph, we can call you.
I have a reputation to uphold, so we're just going to keep being generous and keep giving away free things that are given to me to give away.
That's true. Yeah, you were happy to pass those along. All right. Should be good. We do have to, as you heard, dodge some of the rain today if you're heading down there, but sometimes that also just makes it that much more of an experience, right? You get soaked out there, listen to your favorite band, and keep the party going. Steph, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the music.
Thanks.
How great is that? All right, I didn't even know that she had access to pit passes. I got to hit up Steph. She's got more connections than I do, apparently, here at the station. We got to work on that. All right, while we're still chatting the big gig here, let's pull up who the headliners are across the stages for you tonight. And that would be, first and foremost, at the amphitheater, the biggest stage of them all. Lainey Wilson gets weekend number 2 started here tonight with special guests Lucas Nelson, Shane Smith, and the Saints performing before Lainey Wilson takes the stage. And we know country has taken over Summerfest in so many ways. They get huge crowds when they bring in great acts like Lainey Wilson and those others anytime during the big gig. You can also check out a number of others tonight. The Avett Brothers, love them. They're at the BMO Pavilion with Willie Porter starting off that show. The Psychedelic Furs, even if you don't know them, it's a great name. The Generac stage, I love kind of going through for that. The Uline stage has Devo tonight, Mayday Parade at the Miller Lite Oasis, and plenty more to enjoy. Then I'll ask our producer Delaney, I think we can swap over this graphic here. So Lainey Wilson is the headliner at the amphitheater tonight. Tomorrow, then, it switches gears for the rock fans out there, the Killers. You know they're going to put on a great show live here in Milwaukee. That is the headliner at the amphitheater for Friday night, with the Cold War Kids opening things up. Let me pull up who else is on the grounds for you on that Friday night. Some of the headliners, Cake will be at the BMO Pavilion. Our favorite, of course, the U.S. Cellular stage will have the rap lineup for you with Offset capping things off. But Joe D. Messina, one of the headliners tomorrow, Billy Corgan also there, Malcolm Todd, so much else. And then finally for Saturday, the final day of weekend number 2 here for the big gig in 2025. If we can switch that over, Delaney, Megan Thee Stallion, my sister-in-law, actually, the moment this concert got announced, immediately bought tickets. So we're hosting this weekend. People are coming up and going out to see Meg perform there at the amphitheater with special guest Flo Milli leading things off. Some of the other acts you can check on the festival grounds. Saturday night, Riley Green at the BMO Pavilion should be a great show. Again with the great names, Here Come the Mummies. They're performing at the Briggs & Stratton stage, but you also, some of the other headliners can check out the Mavericks, DJ Don B and Friends at the Aurora Healthcare stage. It's a good one for the rock fans as well at the U.S. Cellular stage with Small Pools, and then Young the Giant, the headliner for Saturday. And yes, Steph mentioned it, Saturday night is her night, The Fray performing at the Uline stage with a series of bands before that kind of fit that musical style. If that's your jam, you can find it. But all kinds of good music to be found at Summerfest this weekend. Great to have the big gig back. We are certainly back in full swing. Summer has kicked off and is here in full in Milwaukee. We love it. All right, giving you a live look. Yep, that's Milwaukee somewhere out there. This is actually our Estabrook Park tower camera, giving you an example of just how different the forecast is, kind of depending where you are. Those low clouds passing by the Milwaukee River north of downtown there, you can barely make it out. Meanwhile, as we heard from Stephanie, sunny down by the lakefront at the Summerfest ground. So definitely a day to be weather aware and plan accordingly, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a complete washout for any of the fun today. And then Friday night, Saturday night, just in time for yours truly, looking pretty good. All right, we're going to take another short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, see what else we find for you. It is 1:13, rolling right along.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, Carl Denbaugh with you here, quarter hour, 1:15 on this Thursday afternoon, kind of the early taste of the weekend as Summerfest is back underway already. Interesting weather day, and this is a perfect example of it right now. Before we went to break, we showed you that very cloud-ridden shot from the Estabrook Park Tower camera north of downtown Milwaukee. How about this in the Marquette Interchange? It's like sunshine and blue skies just a few miles away. So depending where you look, you'll get something different. That is certainly the case. Well, inside today, perfect weather for this, hopefully, but we are checking in with the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors is holding a meeting right now. Members of the public able to share some of their issues, ask questions of their county supervisors. As you can see, quite a large response from those people holding those signs. No need to repurpose parks. The poaching of parkland. Let's listen in to some of the debate happening in front of the Milwaukee County Board.
Tap my hands. I just wanted to say, this is a matter, a professional matter for us to discuss and deliberate as we should, and there should be no ramifications regardless of where you fall, for or against. For me, it is also a personal matter because as a little girl, I began to be aware of the importance of the earth and preserving the earth, preserving our land and our water, and being most respectful of parklands. Milwaukee County has stated two wonderful goals for the future of Milwaukee County moving forward. One is equity. Two is to become the healthiest county in this state. Being a state of 72 counties, we come in at 71. Now, given our population mix, our economic status mix in Milwaukee County, there are multiple families and persons, individuals, who are not able to afford a WAC membership or a membership at Planet Fitness or any other entity. So how do we then reach this goal of becoming the healthiest county in the state? Not just physically, but financially, emotionally, prospering to reach the American dream, and so on and so forth, where we wipe out hunger amongst our most vulnerable populations. One being our youth. It's summertime, school is out. Many of those youth get meals from schools. And so school is out. What happens then? Well, Milwaukee County partnered with Hunger Task Force and Milwaukee Rec, and we are meeting that need in multiple locations across Milwaukee. So that's an awesome thing and moves us closer to the goal of becoming a healthy county. The other crown jewel in Milwaukee County, which is our crown jewel other than the people itself, are our county parks. And not only in Milwaukee County, but in the state of Wisconsin, and dare I say across the nation, we still are held as the crown jewel of parks. Parks are protected lands, and they ought to be. They are not to be used for housing. That is not why we designated park land to be used for housing. With this measure that's put before us, I have absolutely no problem with a hub along with our senior center. Our seniors have articulated that in multiple listening sessions, and I want to thank my colleague who's the chair of the Parks and Culture Committee for attending one of those meetings. He got to hear and engage with people there who are absolutely opposed to this measure. I want people to know that these residents are retirees, and it's a hot center. They do line dancing 3 times a week. They have master quilters teaching quilting. They are also doing a lot of other things. And they are very articulate. They are retired school teachers, nurses, professors. They come from a wealth of background, banking, social work. So we don't understand how and why McGovern Park Senior Center was identified as the first step in developing our parks. We don't understand it. The rumor mill had it. They won't push back. I think we've proven over the last 2.5 months they chose the wrong beast, because they rose up and they spoke very well and very eloquently and let it be known we do not want housing development in McGovern Park. It has been stated that it will not be in the park. Well, I dare to say that if a sign stands on the corner of Sherman and Custard and it says McGovern Park and the senior center sits behind that signpost, well, maybe that is McGovern Park, and it does sit within McGovern Park. We do not want housing in McGovern Park, because we know, and it has been stated by a colleague in this chamber, that this will be one of many, and they will build, build, build. And I say, fine, won't do it with my vote. Parks should be public, free, and accessible for recreation, not for homes. Not single-family homes, not two-family homes, not multi-use complexes. Full stop, period. And anyone who disagrees with that, Chairwoman, I respect them, because that's what our democracy is about. Yays and nays. We don't have to be disagreeable. Someone said, well, that's politics. I said, that's a lie. It's a choice. You can choose to be humane and respectful without the awful discourse that happens oftentimes. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And if you're a developer, I just want you to know you have the right to develop wherever you want, just not within a Milwaukee County park. Don't have a problem with that. I have heard from some of City of Milwaukee alderpersons. They are willing to work with Milwaukee County with the lands that are available to them, and I've shared multiple sites where senior housing can be housed within the Magnificent Seven without being in a park. It doesn't have to happen that way. And the Common Council people are saying they're willing to give 3, 4 parcels of land so that we can have housing for our seniors or any of our residents. That's the way it ought to be. Within my district, there are 10 warehouses or buildings that have been sat delinquent and derelict for 10, 30, and 40 years. Why is no one interested in redeveloping that project? Is it because there may be dollars that have to be spent on the front end? And one of my mantras is always, humanity before profit. And I tell you, that's what this is about. It is not about JFS. I respect JFS. Couldn't ask for a better partner to do senior housing with, just not within a park. I don't understand why people don't get that. Parks are for recreation. They are not for housing. Ask the simple question. Is it legal to live in a park? One of my colleagues made the statement in a committee meeting. We already have people living in a park. Correct. Are they housed there legally? Or are our teams constantly moving people out of parks simply because living in a park is not legal? Sleeping in a park is not legal. One of our very own lost his life in Red Arrow Park. Mr. Dontre Hamilton, I speak his name today. He lost his life. There may have been a fine for sleeping in a park, but the sentence most certainly was not death. Housing plus Milwaukee County parks equal no. I yield back.
Some of the passionate debate there happening in front of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. As you see the response, this was the issue that so many of those people sitting in the gallery came here to discuss today, a proposal that could bring senior living affordable housing to Milwaukee's McGovern Park. And as you heard, there is a senior center already in the park, but this would be housing development added to that green space. And as you can hear, people, at least on that side of things, not in favor of that possibility, that prospect. All right, we have to fit in one more break for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk before our hour is done. Our hour, that's hard to say. We'll be right back after these 2 minutes.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here as we continue to roll on. Just a few minutes left before Kim Murphy takes over the Live Desk for our second hour today. We're going to continue to listen in to this meeting of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors because it's an interesting debate back and forth over the monetary issues, the financial issues for the district, or for the county, excuse me, and what they are able to do or not able to do. As you heard, there's a number of seniors who are speaking out against the potential use of McGovern Park on Milwaukee's northwest side, just south of Silver Spring Drive, if you've ever been by there. They don't want to see that turned into a housing development. They want to keep the park space as green space for the surrounding neighborhood. While we're hearing now from one of the members of the county board, Sean Rowland, elected to the 6th District back in 2020, discussing some of the financial issues for the county and what it faces. Let's listen in live. Kim Murphy will be with you on the other side of this news conference. Excuse me.
We could fix. A nonprofit is here willing to build it for free. And even better, they'll build affordable housing, affordable senior housing, something that is desperately needed. And I've heard this project described as another version of The Rock, and I just think that's such an unfair comparison. And I beg anyone to go to an independent senior living community today and tell me what it looks like and tell me what it sounds like. Does it sound like a loud ballpark or a concert venue? Or does it sound like the quietest, most serene surroundings you've ever stepped in? I was a caregiver for my grandpa for many years before he passed away at age 99, and I miss him all the time. And the senior living communities where he lived were arguably the most peaceful places you could find anywhere in Milwaukee County. They were like swans drifting around. You could hear a little breeze, but otherwise, there's nothing. After Wheel of Fortune was done, his apartment complexes were as dark and as quiet as a Chick-fil-A on Sundays. Okay? Peaceful. That's what we're talking about, providing affordable, quiet, demure, Senior housing with strict curfews and rules to follow. It's a senior housing for seniors on top of a senior center. It's the polar opposite of the rock. So when we vote, don't allow others to make you fear something that could help a lot of people and help us all fix the county a lot faster. Thank you.
Supervisor Martin.
To be clear, when I mentioned the rock in my statement, of course these aren't the same things. I'm talking about the public outcry that we continue to have to hear about a development that a community did not want. It has nothing to do with the Rock Ballpark. It's a beautiful complex. It has nothing to do with that. It's about the outcry from the community that said, we didn't want it, we knew this was going to happen. McGovern Park neighbors have said, we don't want this, and the threat of shutting it down, they said, that's fine. We don't want housing in our parks. They understand. They understand what's at stake. And they're saying, regardless if there was a senior center or not, we still do not want housing in a county park. We don't want it. We don't want it. Not in our parks, not in our parks. Parks plus housing equals no.
Supervisor Johnson, followed by Supervisor Vincent, and then Supervisor Shea.
Thank you, Chairwoman Nicholson. I have a background information piece of 2 pages from the Executive Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Shakita LeGrant McLean. There mentions here the $2 million in low-income housing tax credits that would be used for this particular project. I have listened to a number of residents, a number of people who've indicated, first of all, they don't want any housing in green spaces. In this case, parks. What a lot of people do not understand that there is a connection between senior centers being in parks and another connection. The other connection is that the senior centers are under the purview of the Department of Health and Services and not the Parks Department, even though the senior centers are in the parks. The McGovern Senior Center has about $2 million in deferred maintenance. This low-income housing tax credits of $2 million from the federal government would help to do something about McGovern Park. And if this money is used elsewhere, the Executive Director of the Department of Health and Human Services has indicated in this 2-page document that the senior center will be closing. At some point, it will be closing. The department will continue to build its affordable housing as well as they are able, but if the project does not go through, we will allocate the $2 million earmark somewhere else. And again, the senior center eventually would close if this does not happen. I am one who wants to listen to what the residents have to say, but in this case, it sounds as if at some point, if something does not happen soon, because there's a 30-day time period for which a commitment for this to go forward is before us, or is before the county, is before us as a county board at this particular time. 30-day commitment to vote on this going forward. If it does not happen, eventually the senior center will close. It's further in this 2-page document, it indicates that for all the senior centers, there's deferred maintenance of $20 million. $20 million. So again, there is a connection between the senior centers, which are under the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Parks Department where they exist. That is that connection. And again, for anyone who thought that the senior centers were under the jurisdiction of the Parks Department, that is not the case. That is just not the case. So either we vote for this, or eventually the McGovern Senior Center will close. Thank you, Chairwoman Nicholson.
Thank
And
you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Vincent, quiet, please, quiet, please, in the gallery.
And county board members.
Supervisor Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you so far to my colleagues who have spoken on this issue. I'm going to start with a couple things. One thing I want everyone in this room to know is that I do come here with an open mind today. I am not 100% either way with this matter. I was up until 3 this morning for this matter and another matter in my district. I take matters like this very seriously. Our residents' voice does need to matter when we come to the table. I'm going to push back a little bit on a comment that was made by a colleague just a moment ago. I do not believe, after my visit to the McGovern Senior Center this Monday, thankfully to Supervisor Martin and also to Director LeGrant, Director Guy Smith, Director Mohammed, Supervisor Logston was there. I do not believe that the senior center at McGovern is a dying senior center. As a matter of fact, it was extremely active the day that we were there. I would say there were well over 100 people experiencing that senior center. So we cannot write that off and say it is dying or that it is going to die, because I don't believe the people who make that senior center what it is are necessarily going to let their senior center die. And I thought about this morning. I'm going to give myself a little age here, but 55, I guess, is the age of senior now. So I am a senior. I'm 58, and I'm going to say my age. So thank you. I do care about the future of senior centers in Milwaukee County. We
Good afternoon. You're watching the
recognized
Wisconsin
one of my
Live Desk.
residents
This is a county
who passed away,
board
unfortunately,
meeting,
this last January.
a special meeting, I should say.
During
There's a proposal right now
to
turn
age
part
of
of
senior month,
McGovern
older
Park
senior month.
into
His name was
an
Al
apartment
Evans. I know
complex.
Supervisor
This group
Taylor
right now
happened to
is
join
meeting
at
preserve
the
our
celebration
parks
of life
very
for
much
him.
against
He
this.
was
They
an
say it is
extremely
taking away
active senior
valuable green
in
space
my
from McGovern
community
Park
who
and
was making a
Havenwood's
difference across
neighborhoods.
the county.
We've heard
And
from
he
a couple
was
supervisors
started
who
a
are
program
for
called
this,
Love Thy Neighbor
saying
to
that
help seniors
the
stay
senior
in their
complex,
homes.
the senior center
My mother,
that's
who's
inside
81 years
McGovern
old,
Park
wants to stay
is
in
in
her
need of
home.
repairs, and at some point it is going to have to close. So this is the best, some supervisors say, the best option for using that space. We'll take you back to some of the testimony, some of the comments that are being presented right now.
I'm not making this a rock issue, but there has been a precedent set already by previous county boards in terms of how our public lands are handled, selling them for $1 and then having developments go in, and then having neighbors reach out to you. I have been listening to neighbors on both sides of this issue. I surveyed my community. I don't think 2 months with not a lot of public input has been enough for this level of conversation that needs to take place. I think that we should have had public listening sessions throughout Milwaukee County, because these parks belong to everyone in Milwaukee County. There's 155 parks. We even have passports, I believe, or we had them in the past, for people to try to visit every single park. McGovern Park is a beautiful park. That was my first day there on Monday. It was extremely hot. It was like 100 degrees. We stood in the sun instead of under the tree for some reason. But I will just tell you, there were 4 young men who were standing in that park fishing that day. And I watched them, and we engaged with them. I watched one of them catch 2 little fish. He was very happy. They were using little minnows to catch little fish. It was kind of fun. But I have to say that I do see intergenerational potential, and I know that term has been thrown around with this. I think there already is. I understand that the McGovern Senior Center invites school districts from around Milwaukee to come out and do activities with the seniors there. So we have that going on. I have a couple questions that still are, well, they're not answered, because I did have a conversation with one department that has not been at the table. I was very impressed, because when we have all of our leaders come together, all of our directors, practically, I don't want to say all because they weren't all there, but they were all there talking about this matter and the importance of the future. But then there was one in particular that came to mind that I think needed to be at the table and part of the conversation during these listening sessions, and that was the Sheriff's Department. I talked to Danita Ball this morning and asked, I said, our parks right now have rangers that work through them. They're governed or watched over by the Sheriff's Department, and we would have to increase that particular service in our parks if we start having people housed in our parks. And I will push back if anyone says, well, they're going to, Jewish Family Services is going to hire security. There is a difference between our sworn law officers and a security service that would be in there. I heard it said at one point that the having people living in the park was going to potentially make safety better in the park, or I'm not saying it exactly right. I talked to Supervisor Capriola about this earlier. Not seniors in general, but just people, having more people, making it more active. But I also want to take the other side and say, well, what about putting our seniors in a place where they could be more vulnerable? Are we doing that? And so it's a question that kind of crosses my mind. But when I talked to Danita Ball today, I will say that she told me that the park service that they provide is pretty much from March through November, so that leaves 3 months that they're not currently fully serving our parks because they have other mandated places like the highways that they have to be. So we will, and I know we have members on this board that push back about funding for the Sheriff's Department, but there would have to be an increase in funding for our Sheriff's Department if we need increased services for people that are living in our parks. I am definitely a green person, and I'm not standing here today trying to say I'm voting just my opinion on this, but I do love our parks in Milwaukee County. As a matter of fact, when I walk in the parades, that is one of the things I hand out, are maps for our 155 or so parks. I'm probably off by one or two. It's 161, I think. But anyways, you know, I am so proud of our parks, and I continue to go around and see those parks because they do offer so much in this community. Now, when I saw the footprint of where this potential housing could go, I noticed that it was going to be pushed more out towards the road, not up against the lagoon, which with the senior center right now is right up against the lagoon. And I thought, okay, I said, this is not so bad because this you know, a facility is not.
And to bring you up to speed, if you're just joining us on the Wisconsin Live Desk, this is a county board meeting that is happening regarding a proposal to take 5.5 acres of McGovern Park on Milwaukee's northwest side, that's on 51st Boulevard, to take 5.5 acres from the park and replace it with a 4-story, 45 to 50 unit apartment building. This proposal coming from the Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services and the Jewish Family Services Organization, proposing a major apartment complex in the park. And there is a group that is protesting that, saying that this is taking away from valuable park space for the intergenerational activities that happen there, and also that this is also taking away from the community center, the senior center, that would be a part of this complex. The county and developers have not released the building plans yet in this presentation, but a group now known as Preserve Our Parks, they are very much against this, saying leave our parks alone.
Because they do see this as a tipping tone for Milwaukee County, a tipping point that we will be opening it up. And it was said by a supervisor that we will be trying this out in other parks. And I'm okay with taking this on a case-by-case basis and seeing if that might be the right fit for someone. But out of respect for my colleague, Supervisor Martin, and hearing from her residents, I stand here today thinking, how would I feel if my residents came in force and my colleagues didn't support what I understood to be best for my district? I've had extremely great conversations. I'm going to say Jan Wilberg is here today, so I appreciate her input and her husband Howard, because I respect them very much. And what I like about the conversations I've had with people on both sides of this aisle is that people have not been disrespectful to me. They have not, I've gotten a lot of no's, but I've also gotten a lot of yeses. My survey came out almost 50-50. So today this decision is going to come down to me using my conscience to place a vote. In closing, I'm just going to say we all might have gotten the email, but I definitely got the email that I responded to late last night around 11 or 12 from an employee or a worker from the Jewish Family Services who was he was painting the picture of why we need to do this. And now I don't know if this individual lives in Milwaukee County or not, but I do know that they have a financial interest in having this housing going up. So that is pretty biased in and of itself. But what concerned me about that email, and I don't know if the colleagues got it, but I'd be happy to have my legislative assistant share it, is that this individual, I won't say his name, but I will say that he started to say that people outside of that McGovern area really shouldn't have say on what happens in McGovern Park. And I found that offensive. I actually wrote back to him a very nice email that he got very late or maybe early this morning. But I do have to say that every resident in Milwaukee County gets a voice in this. That's what our job is. We work for our residents. And so when I stand here today, I probably sound like I'm leaning more towards a no, but I still have unanswered questions. I think 2 months of notice without going out to the full community on this matter is not enough time for something significant. And I know I've been talking for a while, so I appreciate your patience all with me, especially you, Chairwoman. But I want us all to think about the people behind the decision that we are making today, because these are real people. The seniors matter, the residents in the neighborhood matter. I will say that when we drove around Supervisor Martin's district, I saw probably 36 boarded up buildings between here and the courthouse where there could easily be improvements to neighborhoods. Think about not having those kinds of eyesores sitting there for years on end and placing people where people already live, because people do like to have neighbors. I don't know, seniors may feel isolated being in a center, and I know there are senior centers around the country, so, would they feel isolated in a park? I don't know. This is a very serious decision for all of us, but I am going to listen to all of you. I respect every one of you on this floor. I've had conversations and even little debates with some of you, and I consider all of you friends. But in the end, we're going to walk away here today with a decision that will impact McGovern Park for now, not necessarily the future of their senior center, because there could be other options that we need to look at with friends groups and other people that would like to work with the senior center. But when I see an active senior center like that, I want to be part of that someday. And I would be happy to join the seniors for some of those. I don't line dance well, but I could do some of the yoga, the chair yoga. It was great. I mean, people were so excited to be there. And I do want to see that continue. And I think it can continue even in the current location that it's in. So I'm going to stop there. Don't have my mind made up. I will be listening, and I appreciate every one of you that will be speaking today. Thank you.
Shea, followed by Alexander, and then Capriolo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, your predecessor, Theo Lipscomb, once said that one never knows which items on the board's agenda are going to be contentious. Well, with all due respect to the former chair, I believe we all knew this one would be. When I first ran for office nearly 8 years ago, first thing I said was, I will protect Milwaukee County parks. Here we are nearly 8 years later, and the question is, are we going to cross the River Styx and give up control of a large chunk of a Milwaukee County park for the rest of this century? If we do that, there's no going back. Developers are going to have their eyes on other Milwaukee County parkland. In my district, there are parks, Sheridan, Warnemont, and Grant, that are on some of the most valuable real estate in Wisconsin. All of them would be very desirable targets. Now, someone may ask, how can you turn down free money? Well, it's not free. we make a third party de facto owners of Milwaukee County parkland. I am as painfully aware as all of my colleagues of Milwaukee County's situation as far as deferred maintenance is concerned, and I am equally, matter of fact, even more painfully aware of the current status of our federal government and state legislature in regards to the outlook for funding for Milwaukee County. Well, as a history major, I also know ruling coalitions come and they go. I attended the Parks Committee meeting on the resolution. Resident after resident of the McGovern Park neighborhood, some of whom are with us here today, said they don't want housing over their senior center. They don't want housing in McGovern Park. Yesterday, I took Supervisor Capriola's advice and toured McGovern Park Senior Center for myself. Madam Chair, I'm glad I did. I toured the quilting room, the line dancing room, the exercise room, and finally the billiards room. And although I didn't meet Colonel Mustard, Miss Scarlett, or Professor Plum, I did interrupt multiple games of 8-ball. The patrons, every one of them, put down their cues long enough to tell me what they want us to do. To a person, they said they don't want a housing complex in McGovern Park. Every single one of them. They said it would change the nature of their senior center, it would change the nature of their park, and most important of all, it would change the nature of their neighborhood. I believe the residents of Milwaukee County know what they want when they are telling us what they want. They have made clear they want us to vote no on this resolution.
You are listening to public comment, and in the little bit that we have been here for the second half of the Wisconsin Live Desk, the majority of the comments have been against this proposal to build an apartment complex in a Milwaukee County park. The arguments that it would change the nature of the neighborhood, that this could open the door for other development in Milwaukee County parks. The seniors, many of them there who are against this plan, say that this would change the nature of their neighborhood and of their community center. Now, this plan is being proposed by the Jewish Family Services, and Milwaukee County Jewish Family Services would actually get a 99-year lease at a cost of $1 per year for this building, a 4-story building with 45 to 50 units in this apartment building. Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services working with Jewish Family Services on this. But again, the majority of the comments that we've heard have been against this idea.
I have a background in finance and accounting, and I look closely at the things that we do with our money, knowing consistently that we never have enough money to do everything that we want or actually need to take care of. So I have given many speeches on this floor to say that we should take out the bonding to handle the things we have to do and figure out as we continue on, how do we better afford things? I'm also very supportive in general of multi-use properties and developments. I think that on my side of the county, where the city has the library that has affordable housing conjoined, it seems that that was a good development. I used that at first as a baseline when I was analyzing this problem, and I thought, well, wouldn't that mean that the county can do similar good developments that are mixed use that will give us more financial security and allow us to do the things we want to do? And so I guess to that extent, I want to compliment the county executive, his staff, and the departments, because they were trying to think outside the box. We want them to do that. However, we have our system here in Milwaukee County set up for this type of decision making for a reason. We don't say it's just up to the supervisor whose district it's in, because we are 18 districts that care about the whole county, not our fiefdoms. And I say that to show that fiefdoms don't and shouldn't exist in our realm here. But we should all be looking at this very holistically, and I'm not looking at it only financially. I also have a small concern about the do what I say, not what I do phenomenon that we often have in government. If you go into one of our parks and bring some beer with you to enjoy time with your friends and family, you may get ticketed. But if you're there on a beer garden day when we all said it's okay, then you're good to go. If you don't have a place to stay for the night and you take refuge in one of our parks, you may be escorted out and told to leave and prodded. But now we're here talking about setting up housing in our parks, and I see inconsistency there that I think we as citizens are all very disgusted with government for often doing, of not being able to see the forest through the trees or vice versa. We talk about wanting more safety in our parks and more eyes. I think that that is an excellent thing. But from another view, couldn't we find ways to get our restrooms open so that people don't have to leave the park to relieve themselves, and get our kiosks open for vendors who will draw in more, and not just on our own timelines when we can provide staffing? We talk about the idea of rejecting free money, and we all hate that. We don't like the feeling. It's human nature to not like the feeling of missing out. It's probably why the Midwest has an excellent coupon culture of you get a coupon and it burns a hole in your pocket so we get to go spend it. But when I traveled to the White House a few years ago, invited by the current president's past administration, I remember sitting in the White House, and representatives from the different counties in Wisconsin were offered the opportunity to ask questions. And some people stood up and said, what is the administration going to do to help with the roads?
Good afternoon. You have been listening to a lot of public comment on a plan that would bring development into a Milwaukee County park. And there is a lot of pushback on that. This would affect not only the neighborhood, but the senior center, the McGovern Park Senior Center, that does so many things for the community. There are games, it's a meeting place, it's a place for meals, it's just a community in and of itself. And this, some fear, not only would change the nature of this neighborhood, but also be a gateway for other parks to then be the subject of development. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
And thanks Thanks for stopping in this afternoon, the Wisconsin Live Desk. There is a lot happening in Milwaukee County right now. We have been listening to a discussion regarding McGovern Park and a possible development, 45 to 50 unit apartment complex put right smack dab in the park. That's a 5.5 acre park and one of the gems of the Milwaukee County park system. Residents have shown up in numbers very much against this. We're also following the second week of Summerfest. So for that, let's go to Stephanie Barrichello, who's hanging out there. And Steph, it's so much better this week than last week.
A huge change. In fact, I'm a little embarrassed to admit I have my light fleece on right now. I took it off, but then I ended up putting it back on. We're only in the upper 60s right now near Lake Michigan, including at the Summerfest ground. So it feels a lot more refreshing compared to the heat and humidity we had last week. We're live here at the U.S. Cellular Connection stage. You can probably hear we're doing mic checks, or the band, of course, is doing mic checks. The newest, next band, I should say, at 2 o'clock, Bound for Benson. I had to do some research on them, but I'm excited to hear another band. It's happened already, Kim. From what I understand, today is half-price drinks, so I'm sure it's going to get a little rowdy as the day goes on. But so far, so good. The weather is cooperating. That being said, earlier this afternoon, as we were setting up, we did have a quick downpour roll through, and I will not understate downpour. The rain was heavy, and it does look like we have a few more out there right now too. So even in the next 40 minutes to an hour, we could have another pop-up shower here at the Summerfest grounds. It's going to be that type of afternoon. So something to just keep in mind if you are planning on heading to Summerfest as the afternoon goes on.
That's what Summerfest is all about, really. You get like 3 kind of different weather forecasts all in one day, and then you're good to go. So, you know, a little rain, I think, maybe is good luck for Summerfest. What about the weekend? What are we looking at?
The weekend is looking so much better. Still a slight chance for a few showers Friday, though it's looking a lot drier than what it was when we were forecasting over the last couple of days. Temperatures tomorrow in the low 80s. So I guess compared to what we have right now, it will be a little warmer tomorrow, but still being near the lake, it's going to feel very nice. And then Saturday, lake breeze actually returns. So a perfect place to be to start the weekend. It looks sunny. We should see maybe some 70s or low 80s in lakeshore communities, including here at Summerfest, but then inland in the 80s. So maybe flock to Summerfest and enjoy that Saturday forecast, because this is going to be the place to be.
Have you had a chance to bring the kids down yet this year?
No, not yet. In fact, I was telling Carl earlier, we do think Saturday is going to be our day because the weather is going to be so nice. We're going to have sunshine. We always bring them, you know, right when it opens. We can get the good food, listen to some of the bands that are starting up, go to the playground, of course. Parents, you know that that playground is like A+. So I do think Saturday will come out for a few hours and enjoy. And then I might come back later Saturday night to see the Fray. They kick off, I believe, at 9.
And we got just a little bit of glitch. Okay, yeah, you said the Fray. I love the Fray, and this is one of the side stages. So once you're in Summerfest, you're good. You don't have to pay more to see them.
Exactly. This is the best part about Summerfest. You can get a little taste. You can stay for the whole show. There are so many great, especially throwback concerts. And the Fray would probably hate me for saying throwback, but you know, I think about when I really, really liked them, and it was, you know, we'll say a couple or more years ago, but really that's my favorite part about Summerfest. All of these amazing artists, some of them, you know, coming back and performing for the first time in a long time. I know last year I saw Boys Like Girls. They had just started another tour after being off basically for years and years. So it's one of the best parts about the festival is seeing so many different genres at a decent price, and especially some of those throwbacks.
And we're taking a look at 8:15 Lacade, and at 10 o'clock tonight, Gavin Adcock at the U.S. Cellular stage. So some artists I'm not familiar with, but I bet they're pretty good because U.S. Cell has not disappointed yet.
Yeah, and it seems to be more of a country theme for tonight. You know, the headliner is Lainey Wilson at the main stage. here at the U.S. Cellular Connection Center, some of those artists that you mentioned, just looking at them briefly, it does seem to be the country stage for tonight. A little different from last Thursday when we were all here. It was more rap, R&B, hip hop, but this will be more of the country stage for this evening. So a good theme for Thursday night to start off the second weekend of Summerfest. I'll tell you, the cover band that performed previously, their name is The Incident. They were fantastic, played so many good songs, and their voices were incredible. So I feel like personally I've already gotten a really good taste of what we've had at Summerfest.
Stephanie, thanks so much for checking in with us. It sounds like another band has started to perform, getting a little difficult to hear. So we'll see you on the news at 4 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks. And you're watching the Wisconsin Live Desk. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. We're going to take you right now to Senator Ron Johnson, who is speaking before the Senate gets a briefing on the weekend strike on Iran. Let's listen in to what Senator Johnson is now talking about. Mostly he's being asked about the president's big, beautiful bill.
We're trying to dig out of it. That's a hard thing to do. Thank you.
Overruling the parliamentarians?
And welcome to the Wisconsin Live Desk. That's how it kind of works when we take things live. He spoke for a couple of minutes before going into that Senate briefing. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio are set to be some of the people, the officials, part of the administration, to testify about what led to those strikes and the success of those strikes. There has been some preliminary information out from the intelligence community saying that the weekend strikes on Iran's nuclear assets only set Iran back a couple of months in its ambitions to manufacture a nuclear weapon. And so Senator Johnson there heading into that briefing, but before that he was asked a lot about his stance, if he's softening at all, helping the president to pass this budgetary objective that he has. The president has said that he wants this on his desk by the 4th of July. But Wisconsin's Senator Ron Johnson has been one of the holdouts, very much concerned about the ballooning deficit that this would contribute to. And so he wants to see greater and deeper cuts. He was saying we're not there yet. He has long campaigned on cutting the government, the U.S. federal deficit. And so he is not seeming to soften on that, although he did indicate that he thinks that they will get there, but they are not there yet. So that's one of the things that we have been keeping an eye on. We've also been listening to testimony that has been happening in Milwaukee County. There is a proposal to build an apartment complex in McGovern Park. That is being met with pushback. Some of the arguments, there have been a lot of them, but one of the arguments has been who should have a say on this. There was some testimony saying that this should only be decided by the Supervisor Felicia Martin. Her district should only have a say on that. Others have saying that this is a county park, this is a part of the county system, and that this is an issue that is of importance to all of Milwaukee County. So it really should be open up to public comment from those who don't necessarily live in McGovern Park, but still have a concern either or support for this development idea. One of the reasons this is being considered is that the McGovern Senior Center is aging. It dates back to the 1970s. It is in need for facility upgrades that Milwaukee County simply does not have the deep pockets for. And so this is seen as a creative idea for helping that happen, because along with the new apartment complex that would go inside McGovern Park, Jewish Family Services, which is working with Milwaukee County on this, has agreed to build a new senior center. But that's not sitting well with the seniors. They say this is also something that's going to change the feel of the park, and they don't want that. You also heard from one representative, I believe supervisor who is not representing that district, saying that this plan really is filled with contradictions, that if a person is unhoused and sleeps in McGovern Park, that person is escorted out, that person can get ticketed, but yet and still now there is a proposal to provide housing in a park. So there is a lot going on with this. We will continue to monitor it, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
We're going to take you back to the Milwaukee County Board meeting that started at noon. It has been at times contentious. There is a proposal to build an apartment building in McGovern Park, replace the existing senior center with a new one, but the caveat is it comes with an apartment building built in a Milwaukee County park, which would really be a first, and some fear it could lead to other development in our parks.
I mean, we are absolutely fortunate that during the debate back in time at the state legislature of who was ultimately going to be able to sell parkland, it was Sheldon Lubar in the middle of the night woke up Senator Darling and said, you can't give the county executive full authority to sell off parkland or get rid of parkland. If that would have happened, it would be the county executive, the comptroller, it would be a appointed individual by the mayor or village president of that municipality. Thankfully, Parks is under our jurisdiction, so we can have 18 of us make this decision. I think we all value parks, and that's why if this happens, I think we all would want to see how it went. You'd have to build it. You would have to literally see it in action and determine, was it successful? Did there need to be changes? And that's, what, half a decade down the road? So it's not some fire sale, let's build houses and subdivisions. That is not on the table. I don't think any one of us would vote for any of that. So I think we got to take that. That's the fear and misinformation that people are spreading, that that's what's next. But I can tell you what's next. This center will eventually be closed. And whether it's torn down or just shuttered up and sits there and crumbles in front of the neighbor's eyes, that's a possibility. It could be $1 million tear down, at least that. $20 million for a new one, at least that. And if we actually do this, that's money that doesn't need to go into McGovern. Kelly, that building is not in the greatest condition. That's next. That's next. We don't have the money to build new ones. I think this is the right thing to do. I look at the presentation by the administration. That's the first time I can recall in all my time is that many department heads all getting together, united on saying that this is what's best for Milwaukee County. So I'll be voting yes.
Supervisor Ekblad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I struggle with this issue and I struggle with this conversation, and I just want to reflect that this will not be the last time that this body deals with this issue. This will not be the last time this body deals with maintenance and the need to come up with creative solutions. And this will not be the last time that we will owe the residents of McGovern Park an explanation, but next time they come before this body, it will likely be because we need to relocate or figure out what's happening to a dilapidated building. Because as thriving as the community is there, and we have Wilson Senior Center in my park, in my district, and it is thriving. It is a core foundation stone of the community. And when I think about what that building would look like as blight, as a magnet for the vandalism and crime that we all know blight attracts, there will be an explanation needed for McGovern Park as a neighborhood in the future. And that's what weighs on me heavily. Thank you.
Supervisor Gomez-Tom, followed by...
We just heard from two supervisors seeming to not close the door on this proposal to build an apartment building in McGovern Park. The reality, they say, is that the senior center is dilapidated. It is in need of maintenance. And at some point in the near future, there is going to be an issue that the county will have to face on tearing it down because they don't have $20 million to build a new center. And so the two supervisors that you heard from just painting this picture that this perhaps may be a creative solution to get a new senior center in McGovern Park with help from outside groups. Let's listen in.
How they're feeling and thinking. But I also want to remind folks that there's still a lot of people that we don't hear from. And those community members, it could be that they're apathetic to our government system because they don't see investment in their communities, that they don't see resources and really us talking about what we can do for them. They see other things happening. And I also think about the comments that continue to be said about housing in parks and how we can't have people living in parks. But the reality is that people are living in parks. We have people who are unhoused who are not going to reach out to their supervisors because they might not realize who their supervisor is because they are staying in a park, or they're staying under a bridge, or they're staying somewhere that, park and ride. Yes, that's near and dear to my heart as well here in District 14. And the reality is that we are put in a very tough situation. And I'll once again remind folks where that situation comes from. We do not get enough support or funds from the state of Wisconsin. 80% of our budget goes to mandated services. And right now, unfortunately, our senior centers are not considered mandated services. They are unmandated, but we know that they provide leaps and bounds of resources, community, and support for our neighbors, our loved ones, and for the well-being of our county. And so for me, I am thankful that the administration put together this idea of something that could save this senior center. And on top of it, add affordable housing to a community that direly needs it. And yes, on parkland, that is not the ideal. That is not the version of perfect that we would want to see. But it is a version of reality that we have. And one thing that I want to remind folks is that there's a need of 40,000 units of affordable housing that is $650 or less. And if you're thinking about that, someone who's working minimum wage, 40 hours a week at $7.25 an hour, that is still 52% of their income to afford $650 a month. And so for me, having at least, and I know it's a drop in the bucket, but at least a little more housing, particularly senior housing, that is considered affordable in our community. And I'll say too, as someone who represents, my whole district is within the city of Milwaukee. A lot of our affordable dollars have gone out into the suburbs, which they're needed as well across all of Milwaukee County. But to have something in the city of Milwaukee is so needed. And so with that, that's why I'm in support of this. This doesn't mean that I'm in support of future projects that happen in our parks, but I am supportive of this one here today. Thank you.
Supervisor O'Connor.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I've had the opportunity to hear this issue twice in committee already, and then I did listen into the third committee.
On your right, you've been listening to testimony from supervisors and from public comment on this proposal to put housing in a Milwaukee County park. On your right side, we just heard from senators as they head into a briefing on the intelligence that led to the U.S. Launching strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. So we are keeping an eye on that. We're going to take a break.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
The Sean Diddy Combs trial now is in the hands of, soon to be in the hands of the jury. This has been a 7-week trial involving 34 witnesses, and all of them for the prosecution. The defense only cross-examined those witnesses but did not present witnesses of their own. So closing arguments begin today, expected to conclude tomorrow, and possibly there could be a verdict in this case before the 4th of July. Combs, the music mogul, is accused of racketeering and sex trafficking, among other charges. He says that he is innocent. The case centers around two women who have come forward, Cassie, the singer, and a woman only identified as Jane Doe, both in relationships with Combs, but say that they were essentially sex workers. And so that is the crux of this case, in that the prosecution is saying that not only did he traffic these women, but he used his businesses to conduct these freak-offs, as he referred to them, or hotel nights. So we will be keeping an eye on that, as we are also keeping an eye on what is become a very big issue in Milwaukee County, the discussion of whether or not to allow housing, an apartment building, to be built in McGovern Park. The arguments have ranged from this should solely be decided by the residents of this district and the supervisor there, to arguments that this affects the entire county. We've heard from a couple of supervisors that say Milwaukee has a problem. There's not enough money to fix these buildings. The senior center, though vibrant, is falling apart. It's in need of maintenance, and that to build a new one would cost $20 million. This apartment proposal would include a new senior center.
And then
Let's
the
listen.
next low-income housing tax credit cycle will begin in 2027. Even for this process now, there has to be zoning approvals by various local governments, and the application is to be completed by the end of 2025. So I am against Chairwoman Nicholson referring this item to committee because of the timeline that is before us. Thank you.
Supervisor Logston.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, colleagues. We've heard a lot here today. And the first thing I want to say...
And we certainly have heard a lot. In fact, it got so contentious at one point that one supervisor left. So we are following this issue. This is just the beginning of the discussion, but one that has gone on for the last 2 hours. Of course, if it is happening right now, whether it be locally or across the country, and it's something that you need to know, we will have it right here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We thank you for tuning in. We're also keeping an eye on the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Closing arguments are expected to wrap up tomorrow, and then the case will be in the hands of the jury. And of course, it is the last week of, well, no, it's the second week of Summerfest. Don't want to rush that. That is happening. Our Stephanie Barrichello is on the grounds, and we'll have an update on the weather forecast, which looks gorgeous for this weekend, as opposed to last weekend, which was a hot one. So thank you for joining the Wild Desk. We'll see you tomorrow. Carl Deffenbaugh tomorrow.
We are very grateful to the military men and women who performed a feat of military accomplishment that I think will go down in the annals of military history. But their mission was limited to what they could destroy with the tools that they have, and the final